It is June 20th, 2026. So there's only about 1.5 weeks left in June. Let's talk about some kind of a potential expected high and lows for some stocks. So this is the AMD monthly chart. This is the AMD weekly chart. So as you know, the each vertical line for the most right, that is the current AMD's real-time stock price in the current month, and this is the weekly chart. So since last week is already completed, so this is the last week's real-time price. The tips of these trend lines are the projected potential high and lows for the AMD stock price for the next week, using the Upin's prediction model. So you know AMD monthly chart in this stock price already reached this red resistance point, a major resistance, and also this yellow resistance trend line. So it is expected will be the monthly high for this month unless it can break out. So after this is reached this monthly potential high and the major resistance, and it is expected to have a pullback, or it may try to retest it again. And if it can break out, and then it will expected to have a larger pullback. So the next week, the fluctuation range, based on the tips of these trend lines. So at most, is probably it may have a low priority, high probability to reach this $572 at this yellow trend line. So if it opened below this blue trend line, $548, then it have a potential to pull back, to drop. So just keep an eye on this green support trend line. The tips, the price is $534. So if it can hold at this price, it may have a potential to push up to this target price of $572. But if they can't hold it, and then may have a potential to potentially drop it to this $501 next week. So this is the AMD. So let's talk about the TSM. So the TSM monthly chart, the stock price also increased to this top yellow trend line. Typically, when the stock price increased to this top yellow trend line, especially in monthly chart, so this is a major resistance. So it was expected to have a pullback. So next week, the tips of these trend lines are the expected potential high and low for TSM for the next week. So last week, you see this pulled out, break out of this top yellow trend line, and there's a still gap, hasn't reached this major uh, uh, red dot, resistance dot around $471. So next week, it is expected potentially it may be open high around this yellow trend line around $471. So it's exactly around this red dot, and then it is expected to have a pullback. And then if the stock price dropped to this $449 around this green trend line, and if it can hold, and then that could be a good support and may entry, a good price to entry, if it can't drop down below this green trend line. And let's talk about now NOW. And NOW this month, it have a big dropped exactly from this red resistance support dot, around $136, dropped it down to this $95. So it dropped below this blue trend line, so it's already reaches to the low price region. So any price around this region, it is expected to still make a profit if you hold it for a little bit longer. So, but since it's already dropped below this blue trend line, so it has a potential to maybe drop it down to this bottom blue trend line. So in case if it dropped to this $85, it is still a good price to buy, and then it is expected to have a good rebound. And if you take a look at this weekly chart, so since last week is already completed, the tips of these trend lines are projected potential high and low for the next week. So the last week it opened here exactly below this red resistance trend line, and then it dropped down to this blue trend line, exactly dropped to this blue trend line, and then slightly to have a slightly temporary rebound. So the next week, if it can, it is likely to be opened or will target this red resistance trend line at the tips of this red resistance trend line around $98. So if it can break out, and then it may have a potential to reach this yellow trend line target as a target of $107. But if it can't break it out, it may still have a potential to drop it down to this, at least to this red trend line around $92, and may have a potential to also drop it to this blue trend line around $86. And the tips of this blue trend line is around $86. $86 is exactly around this bottom trend line, bottom blue trend line in the monthly chart. So it's a good price to buy. So take a look at that, watch it closely. And let's take a look at the HQ. So HQ stock price, it increased to almost the bottom of this stock price around $10 to around $40, almost a triple the price in this month. So it has a very good strong upward momentum. It also increased above this red resistance dot, so that means it has a very strong momentum. But since it's already increased a lot, and right now it has a pullback from the peak value around $38, dropped down to this $29 at the closing of the market is about $29.5. So $29.85 is around this red dot. So next week, this is a monthly chart because this month is not completed yet. There's still 1.5 week left in this month. So the next week, this is a weekly chart, and you see it increased a lot, significantly above this resistance dot. So that means it implies it still have a strong increasing or upward momentum, but we'd like to find a good support price or low price to buy, potentially that have a better chance to make a higher profit. So the tips of these trend lines are the projected high and low for the next week. For HQ for the next week, so we are targeting this $27 at this green support trend line. So that will be a good support if it can hold at this price or above this price. If it in case dropped down to this $25, it's still a good buy zone. And it has a potential to increase to this yellow trend line around $34 for the next week. And let's look at the SPCX hot stock in the previous 2 weeks. For this 15 minutes chart, you can also look at these trend lines. You will get an idea about when it has a potential to increase and when it has a potential to decrease. So look at this SpaceX. So during this 15 minutes, so basically 30 minutes, you can see this trend lines is upward, and the stock price opened exactly around this support blue trend line, and it has a strong upward momentum, and then break out of this top yellow trend line. So that means it have a strong momentum at that time. So if you purchase this, the stock price around $179, around $180, it increased up to this resistance dot and pulled back a little bit, and then continue to increase all the way up to this second layer of resistance dot. So from this $180 up to this $188, so increased by $8. So I take a profit exactly during this 30 minutes for $8 to $10 of increase. If you consider the next 15 minutes, there's a higher high, so increase to almost like $189. $189.9, exactly $10 of a rebound. So if you look at this kind of a trend lines, you will know when it will have a tendency to increase. And even during this price, I actually purchased this SPCX exactly around this low price, $172, and then take a profit around this $180 up to this $180, and then re-entered during this period, during this price range. So this is the 15 minutes chart. During this 60 minutes chart, you can also look at know the trend lines. For example, during this period of time, the trend lines of this 60 minutes chart are downward. So that means during this period of time, the stock price will tend to drop. So it have a big drop from around 100 $190 to almost down to $172, dropped by almost like more than $20 if you consider there's an open low scenario. And I can take a look at another BABA Alibaba stock price. So let's go back to a monthly chart and go back to this weekly chart on the right side. So in my European stock analysis YouTube channel, I posted a video at the end of last month at May 30th, at exactly at the end of this month, last month. So at that stock price, the stock price dropped down to this blue trend line. I mentioned in that video, I said there's a potential rebound for this BABA stock price. Just 2 days later, at the second day of this month, June, the stock price exactly opened here and jumped up to this $132. So compared to that price, when I generated that video, up to this price, $132, it increased by $10, have $10 of a rebound after 2 days later, after I generated the video, and then exactly increased, you see, exactly increased to this red resistance trend line. So it's a major resistance in this monthly chart, and then it started to drop, have a pullback, and for the whole month it already dropped down exactly to this blue bottom blue trend line. That's a major support trend lines in the monthly chart, exactly dropped down to this trend line, or touch that trend line around $106 or something like that, and then slightly rebounded a little bit, closed around $107. So after it reaches to this bottom blue support trend lines in monthly chart, it is expected to have another rebound. Or so in the early stage of rebound, it's potentially have some kind of a consolidation stage, have some kind of fluctuation. So it may rebound slowly, have some kind of consolidation and may fluctuate a little bit more. So, but generally, after it reaches to this bottom blue trend line in monthly chart, it will have a tendency to rebound, have maybe like a potential to rebound for another $10 up to this the up level trend line of this blue trend line in monthly chart is around 116 dollars. So in the weekly chart, the tips of these trend lines are the projected high and the low for the next week of the BABA price. So so the next week, if it can open maybe like or can hold above this $106, it will have a tendency to increase to this blue to this yellow trend line around $114. If it can break out of this $109, so it may have a tendency to increase to this either this yellow trend line around $114 or this at least to this top red trend line around $109. But if it can't hold above this $106, it will still have a tendency to drop it down to this blue trend line at the tip of this blue trend line around $102. So it will be a good support or buy zone around this tips of the blue trend line. So around $102, if it can drop it down to this price. So if you are interested in this kind of analysis, you are welcome to subscribe Upin Stock Analysis YouTube channel or watch more video and get a notice if there's a new video posted.